There have been more than 100 mass shootings all across the country, according to the Gun Violence Archive. Now, two of the most recent ones in Atlanta and Colorado, claiming 18 lives.
President Joe Biden says he's optimistic that a reasonable gun control bill can make it through the Senate to curb the violence. On Sunday, a congressional delegation, which included two members from our area, traveled to Georgia to pay their respects to the 8 people who were killed in the spa shootings.
Hi everyone, I'm Congressman Andy Kim. I'm here down in Georgia, just outside of Atlanta, outside the site of the first shooting that we saw just a couple weeks ago. I wanted to come here and pay my respects to those lives lost, pay respects to the community that is still grieving, and just try to have a sense of how we show solidarity from around the country.
New Jersey Congressman Andy Kim right there, and New York Congresswoman Grace Ming met with family members and laid flowers at the 3 separate shooting sites.
We are joined this morning by one of their colleagues, Congressman Ritchie Torres of the Bronx, who led the charge for a gun offender registry right here in New York, now fighting for tougher gun control on Capitol Hill. Good morning to you once again, Congressman Torres. Thanks for being here.
Always a pleasure to be here.
So let's get into this. According to the nonprofit group, the Gun Violence Archive, let me just throw some numbers out there. There have been 114 mass shootings in the United States just in the first 3 months of this year. We have been down this road before, and every time there's a mass shooting, Congressman, we say we're going to go forward with tougher gun controls. Do you think that this time will be different?
I can only hope. You know, the United States has more mass shootings than the rest of the industrialized world combined. According to a 2018 study, we have more guns than people, 393 million guns. And guns like assault weapons and high-capacity magazines are weapons of mass murder. And if we allow those weapons of mass murder to circulate freely on our streets and fall into the hands of dangerous people, then we're never going to break the cycle of gun violence. As far as I'm concerned, the greatest stumbling block on the path to progress is the filibuster. One U.S. senator has the power to filibuster public safety for 330 million Americans. Our system is broken.
Indeed, it sounds like it. You know, earlier this month, House Democrats voted to actually pass new background check expansions, not only for commercial gun sales, but also private sales. But that may not fly in the sit-in. I know had already alluded to it, this filibuster. Do you think that these 2 recent mass shootings will change anything? Because we've had how many in the past, and it doesn't seem to have made a huge difference. What's it going to take?
Look, in a rational world, every gun would be registered, every gun owner would be licensed, and every gun sale would be subject to a complete background check. And we know that 90% of Americans support background checks. Background checks have been effective at preventing 3 million prohibited people from purchasing and possessing firearms. And 80% of guns put to criminal use were sold without a background check.
Can I push back just a second on this, Congressman? Because the suspect in Colorado passed his background check, right? Despite a misdemeanor assault conviction prior. So are you saying an expanded background check, and what would that look like?
Well, in the Georgia case, you have the right to buy a firearm without the completion of a background check. There's no waiting period in Georgia. Again, there's no single safety measure that's going to prevent gun violence, but we have virtually no regulation of guns in America.
Right.
You can purchase guns from gun shows or purchase it privately without going through any background check whatsoever. You know, my view is that if you have a history of violence, if you have a history of serious mental illness, or if you fail to pass a background check, then you should be prohibited from possessing or purchasing a firearm.
I think you bring up
That's
a
common sense.
a very good point here, because different states have different laws or different ways of getting around the laws. There needs to be a fundamental, regulation out there that everyone has to adhere to so that we're all on the same page. But, you know, we haven't heard much from the NRA in the wake of these 2 shootings. Federal gun control legislation hasn't changed much in the 2 decades. Is Congress prepared to take that on before more Americans lose their lives? I mean, besides these background checks, what more can you do?
Look, my view is we should either abolish the filibuster or at a minimum reform the filibuster. You know, as the vice chair of Homeland Security, my view is that issues affecting Homeland Security or public safety should be exempt from the filibuster. There should be an up or down majority vote on the background checks legislation that Congress, that the United States House of Representatives passed a few weeks ago on a bipartisan basis.
There's a lot of talk about this filibuster, and I think we could do a whole segment on the filibuster and explaining what exactly that means for our viewers. But I want to ask you a question about, we talk about background checks and stricter gun controls are one thing, but what's the likelihood, Congressman, of passing an all-out ban on semi-automatic weapons and assault rifles, right? Because that is what was used in these two last mass shootings and for what we've seen for decades now in these mass shootings.
We once had a ban on assault weapons in the United States, and it drove down the likelihood of mass shootings by 70%. So it is effective, but the greatest stumbling block is politics. We have the legal tools to prevent gun violence in America. What we are lacking is the political will, and I hope that we can change that in the weeks to come.
Yeah, and I think that's really important because when you think about it, we're trying to get to the point of automatic rifles, but you can't even get background checks passed, right? So, I mean, there is a fundamental breakdown in the ability to pass laws. And I know you're pointing to the filibuster, but is there anything else that can be done?
Look, I'm hopeful that we're going to make progress because there's no excuse. We have a Democratic House, a Democratic Senate, and a Democratic President. So we are more positioned than ever to advance gun safety. And Americans have a simple question, like how many more people have to die? How many more mass shootings have to happen before Congress gets its act together? The most important responsibility of government is to keep people safe. And if we're not keeping people safe from gun violence, then we're failing at our core mission. So I'm optimistic that we will get something done in the months to come.
I hope your optimism counts for something, because after the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting where young children were shot and killed, nothing changed. And I think people are just saying, when is enough enough? So let's see. We'll stay on top of this one, and we'll continue to carry our conversations on with you. Keep us posted, okay?
Good seeing you,
Absolutely.
Congressman.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.